Hi, and welcome to part 5 of this PowerShell GUI tutorial series. So in the last videos, we've seen how to build a service inspector, and we built all that using PowerShell code. We built out the form, kind of like trial and error, launching the form, seeing where everything was, and then building it out. In this video, we're actually going to be using Visual Studio, in our case, Visual Studio 2019, to build out the form. And then we're going to be using the XAML code that it generates to actually use that form. And then we're just going to add the functionalities to the drop-down list and get it to the labels. So we're going to be recreating that same application, but just in a different format using Visual Studio 2019, just to introduce the idea, just to see how much it can save us some time in building out that form compared to having to code the entire form manually in PowerShell. And then we're also going to be in later on videos, we're going to be using Visual Studio from now on to be designing these forms just to save us a lot of headaches in designing the form. I find it a lot easier. If you find the coding method a lot easier, then definitely stick to that. But I just want to show you guys this method as I find it definitely a lot easier. And down in the description, I'm going to have a video on how to install Visual Studio 2019. I made that video just before making this. This way you guys can follow along on how to install it, know what packages to install. That video is definitely more geared towards this PowerShell series. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So I already have Visual Studio 2019 open. Like this is just the window when you click on it and it opens up and it gives you the option of what to do. So we are going to be creating a new project. So let me just zoom in here for you guys so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So we're going to create a new project. And then for the project, what we're going to want to do is we are actually going to want to create a WPF application. So I have it here in my recent project templates, but if you actually scroll down here, we should actually see a C# WPF application. Now you could make a Visual Basic WPF application. As long as it's a WPF application, you are good. So we're just going to select that and we're going to click on Next. And the project name in this case, honestly, is not very important. We aren't going to be creating an actual project. We are simply going to be designing the form, and then we're going to be saving the XAML code in our PowerShell folder. So I'm just going to keep it as the default project name, which is WPF App 2. For you guys, if it's your first one, it'll be WPF App 1. And we're just going to click on Next. And also, like just to let you guys know, I always use the same project afterwards. I just kind of change the form and then just save the XAML code in a new location. So we're going to do the target framework. We're going to keep that at .NET Core 3.1. And we're just going to hit Create. So this is going to generate us a new project. So let's just wait for that to pop open here. We just drag it into our window here. All right, so this is a little bit small. So let me just zoom in here for you guys so you guys can actually see what's going on. So we have our Visual Studio window here. Now this is the actual designer. And then we have some options on the side here. So what I like to do is I like to click on Toolbox here and just pin this right away. This way it's going to be there forever. And we have all of our controls here on the side. So we see we have our combo box here. We have our buttons. We have our labels that we've played with before as well. We have some text boxes. We have some tab controls. There's a whole bunch of things that you can use. But like I said, we're just going to be remaking that service inspector. So we know we need a combo box. We need 5 labels. And that's pretty much it in our case. So let's go ahead and let's drag a combo box in here. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to drag 5 labels in here. And then we're going to zoom in and we're going to do some more work just so you guys can actually see what's going on. All right. So here we have our window here that we are designing. So let's go ahead and let's actually place some of these things so they look a little bit better. So let's move our label right here. Let's move our combo box right beside the label for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to double click on this label. And for the content, so here you can actually set the content. So if you click on your label, you can see that this is a little bit highlighted. I like to do it this way, or even if you really wanted to, at the left, at the right here of the window, you have a bunch of properties. You have the common properties where you can change the content, you can change the appearance. So you have tons of different options. You can change the font styles and everything like that. So it gives you a lot of options, very, very easy. You can even, I believe it is right click, you can edit the text. So we're just going to put services here. So there it is. I like to edit it here just so I can actually see what's going on. And then let's move this combo box. And as we can see, it gives us like red lines to really line it up nicely. So I find that definitely much nicer than the code method. It just makes it very, very easy to make it look a lot nicer. So let's just organize all these labels here at the proper spot. And then we just have a couple more steps to do. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give this label the content of friendly service name. And what's awesome is you can already see how much easier it is to place these labels and make sure that they are placed properly so they don't overlap. This one is going to have the label of status. And let's go ahead and let's just move all of these so they're all lined up. And this way it looks really nice. These are all lined up. These are all lined up. Now what we want to do, so the form is actually already designed pretty nicely. Everything seems pretty fair. So here we can see that we have a title here. So let's just call this Service Inspector. And then we can also change the width and the height here. So let's just change the width to 500 and change the height because it looks a little awkward right now. Let's change that to 350, and that looks a lot better. You can make it smaller if you really wanted to. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to select the combo box, and on the right of the window here, we are going to see where it says name. We're going to want to give it a name. We're going to want to name it DDL Services. Now you can give it any name you really want as long as you remember the name that you give it. So we have DDL Services, and we're going to want to do the same thing for the label. So for this label, we're just going to actually empty out the content, and then we are going to give it the name of label name. And we're going to do the same thing for the status label. So we're going to select this one, empty out the content, and we are going to give it the name of label status. All right, so we have our form completely built out. Everything will seem to be good here. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to click on File at the top left, and we're going to save the main window.xaml as. And what we're going to want to do is we're just going to want to go into our folder with our PowerShell in it. Actually, this is going to be 5. And then we could just leave it main window.xaml. That will work. All right, so we have all of that done. So we can actually go ahead, we can either close or minimize Visual Studio. I'm just going to minimize it here in case we want to make changes in just a little bit. And perfect. So we're zoomed out here. And as we can see, if I go into my folder, we have our main window XAML. What I actually like to do first is actually just shift right click on that, copy as path, and then we are good to go now in our PowerShell window. So the first thing we are going to want to do in our PowerShell here is we're going to add a type, but this time we're going to add a slightly different type. So we're going to do add type, assembly name of presentation framework. And again, this is for the WPF, the Windows Presentation Framework. So that's the main reason for adding that type there. And then we're going to want to put a variable here. We're going to call it xamlFile. And we are going to paste our path there. This is going to be the path to our XAML file because we are going to need to read that and create the window using that file. So then what we want to do is we're going to want to create a variable called inputXAML equals get content. And we are going to get the content from our path of XAML file. And we're going to make sure that we import it with the raw property, the switch for that. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually modify this input XAML. So we're going to do input XAML equals input XAML. And we're going to do a dash replace. And the first thing we're going to replace is going to be MC colon ignorable equals D double quote D, oops, sorry, equals double quote D double quote. Then we're going to do a single quote, and then we're going to replace that with an empty string. And then we're going to do another replace. And in this case, we are going to do a X colon capital N. And we are going to replace that with just capital N. And then we are going to do another replace. And this is going to be our final replace. And we are going to replace a hat symbol, which I need to remember how to do. Yes, so Shift 6 if your keyboard is English. And then we're going to do a lesser than symbol, I believe. And then we're going to do a capital WIN dot star. And then we're going to replace that with lesser than symbol and then window. Now, what this all does is if you actually look at the XAML code, so if we actually reopen up our Visual Studio here, we're actually going to see the MC ignorable. So let me just zoom in here so you guys can actually see what's going on. So we have our MC ignorable equals quote D quote, and we are removing this. So that's what that's for. And then we have the replace of X colon N to just N. So basically we're just removing the X colon on this one. And then the other part that we are changing is the greater than win dot, which I don't believe I'll have any in this case. So I think that we are going to be okay here. That is only if you have certain types of controls in there, which I don't believe that I have any today. So that should be okay. And what I'll be doing is I'll actually be placing the bulk of this code in the description so you guys can actually copy paste some of it, because this is code that you'll always have to put in for it to load your XAML code as a window. And you don't want to memorize this. Like, there's really no point. There are tons of websites that actually do have this code on there. This is not something that is super obvious to do. So what we're going to want to do is, now that we have our input XAML properly formatted, we are going to want to do a block here and put XML in here. So this is going to be creating a variable type of XML, and we're going to name this XAML, and we're going to set that to our input XAML. Now, you don't really need to do this. You can just simply convert your input XAML into XML, but this is just lets you a little bit more troubleshoot and debug later on if something goes wrong. Then what we want to do, now that we have our XAML code already, now we need to read it in and create the window for it. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do reader equals new object system dot xml dot xml node reader, and then we are going to pass in our XAML object. All right, perfect. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to wrap this next code in a try catch block. So let's do our try catch. Let's open that, and then let's do that. All right, so in our try block, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do a PS form equals Windows dot markup dot XAML reader. All right, and then we're going to do a load. And what we're going to load is we're going to load in our reader. Now, if this errors, what we're just going to do is similarly to how we did our other warnings in our tutorial videos for PowerShell, in our advanced tutorials, and in the Active Directory loader module videos. What we're going to do is we're just going to do a write host. You can do a write warning here, a write debug, anything you really want. And we're just going to do our write $sign underscore dot exception. And then we're just going to throw. Perfect. So now what we're going to want to do is, so if we do this and then we do a PS form dot display. So now if we do this here, oops, it's not display. It is show dialog. I don't know why I got display out of that. So if we run this here, we do get our form. So everything does seem to work very well here. We have our dropdown. Nothing's loaded in because we haven't put that code in there. So everything seems really good. So the only thing that's missing now is we're loading in our form, but we can't reference any of our buttons or our dropdowns because they don't have a PowerShell variable assigned to them. So what we need to do is we actually have a loop that we're going to go through, and we're going to create variables based on the objects that have names. So that's why we went ahead and gave names to the specific dropdowns and the specific labels that we wanted. Now, we could have gave a name to every label. We could have gave a name to everything, but that just makes it that there's going to be a lot of variables created after. And we know that some of them we're never going to change because they're just labels that are there. They're just standard. We just want the text in them to kind of give it a title or description to the field. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do XAML dot select nodes, and we're going to select the specific nodes here. We're going to do our double quotes, and we are going to do a // star, and then we're going to do square bracket, so open and close square bracket, and we're going to do an @ symbol and then name here. So we're going to be grabbing everything that has a name, and then we're going to do a for each object. So we've seen this in the last video was for each object with the pipe. And then what we're going to do is in there, we are going to go ahead and do another try catch loop just to be able to be 100% positive that we don't get any errors here. So we have our try catch. In the try statement, what we're going to do is we're going to do a set variable, and we're going to do a name. So in name here, you can definitely do anything you really want, but one of the main things you're going to want to at least include is going to be your $__name, because that's going to be the name of the control that you have. So in our case, DDL services, label name, and label status. And what I like to do, and a general consensus of what is actually appropriate in this case as a best practice, is to add the word var and underscore. You can do var dash, but we're just going to do var underscore here. And then we're going to do the value is going to be window dot find. Oh, actually, this is not going to be our window here because I do not have. So we're going to do PS form dot find name, and this is going to be $_ dot name, and then our error action in this case will be to stop, because we don't want it to error, because if it throws an error, we already know that our form's not going to work properly, and we're just going to throw the error here. So that should be good. And then what we're going to want to do, which is also a pretty cool functionality that I don't think I've showed before, it's going to be get variable. So this is actually going to get all the variables that we have. So if I just actually run this right now, we can actually see all of our variables and the value that they have. So this is actually pretty cool, but we won't want to see all of the variables. All we really want to see are the variables that have a var underscore star. So anything that starts with var underscore, we want to get. So let's go ahead and let's actually run all of this code here. So we have our window pop up, and we actually have here all of our controls. So we actually have our name here. We have var DDL services, var label name, var label status, and we can see that they are a combo box and a label. So that is awesome. So what we want to do now is we want to obviously load in all the services like we did in our first service inspector. We want to load all those services into the combo box or the drop-down list. So very similarly to that, we are going to do get services, or get service, I should say. And then all we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and do a for each object var DDL services dot items dot add, and we are going to add $_ dot name. And now if we run this, we do see all of our services. So if I just zoom in for you guys, we actually see all of our services in here, which is awesome. It's a I find these forms a little bit nicer than the ones that you can build with the PowerShell as well. So I definitely prefer this a whole lot better. All right, so now the only thing that we have left to do is to create our function and then add that functionality to when the index is changed. So let's go ahead and let's create that function. So let's do function get details. And all I'm going to do in this case is actually go ahead and copy paste the code from our other video, which we're actually gonna have to slightly modify. But this is the code that we had before. So obviously with our variable names being different, we are gonna have to update these. So let's go ahead and let's do, this is going to be var ddl services dot selected item. And then our label name is not label name anymore. It's going to be var label name. And then this is going to be var underscore label status. And let's go ahead and let's just copy that to every status here. Perfect. So that should work correctly here. Now, there's actually going to be a few other things that are going to be changing. So if I do a var underscore label name dot, if I go to text, we're going to see that we actually just get text input. We actually don't get text. And that's because these aren't actually form controls anymore. These are they are Windows controls. So it's actually going to be dot content. So we're going to do a slight few modifications here. So all the dot text are going to change to dot content. And then if we do dot for color, which I believe will be foreground in this case, I could be completely wrong about that. But let's go ahead and let's actually try this. So dot foreground. I don't know if this is going to work for the foreground color. So we're going to experience this together. All right, so that should work great here. Now there's one other thing that we are going to want to do, and that's going to be add this function to when the combo box is changed. So what that is actually going to be, so before we had our DDL service and we added a selected index change. Now with the form control being actually different, the actual type of event actually has changed as well. And actually, this is a little bit easier because I'm going to be posting a link to this page here. So all the controls are under System Windows Controls namespace. So we have all of our different type of controls here. So we have our checkboxes, we have our combo box. So if we go to combo box here, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit for you guys. So we have our combo box class, and we have a bunch of fields. We have tons of properties. And we will have methods as well. So let's go ahead and let's scroll down to the selected index or something around that selected index. So on selection change here is going to be what we want to do. So let's add a on selection changed. So what we're going to want to do is, and we are going to want to raise a selection changed event. So this is actually super, super important because we are not going to want to do a add underscore on selection changed. We're going to want to do a add underscore selection changed because that's going to be the event that gets triggered. So we're going to go back here and we're going to do DDL services dot add underscore selection changed. And then we're going to put our script block in here and we are going to do our, it's get details. All right, so let's see if this works here. So, and there it is. So it does actually work. So let me actually just zoom in here so you guys can actually see what's going on. So we have our app management. Let's go see our spooler, which is running and it's green. So that's awesome. And let's go for bits, which we know is, I guess, also running. Browser is running. And there it is. Stopped is actually red. So everything is super easy when you're building it with Visual Studio. There's a few key things that change, but there's a lot of documentation online like this website here, which is from Microsoft, which actually has all the different types of controls. I'll actually be posting a link in the description to this website for you guys so you guys can start building out all sorts of different forms. If you guys want me to work on specific types of controls, definitely put a comment down below and I will make some sort of application with that form. So we've made the service inspector twice in two different ways. I'd prefer doing it the Visual Studio way. The service inspector is maybe a bad example because there's not that many controls, but you guys could probably see the benefit of just dragging and dropping to design a GUI since you are designing it for a visual appearance. Sometimes with code, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. So I hope that actually helps you guys. So in the next couple videos, we're going to be playing around with some more controls, making some more complex applications, maybe playing around with the document picker. So we can pick a document and maybe load in some CSV data into some sort of window. If you guys want to see that, let the comment down below. Please like and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you on the next video.